Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to a brand spanking new week of hairy news, which is large. Hey, Joey.
Good morning, evening.
Don't give it away. Don't say morning. They know we pre-recorded it.
Pre-record. Shit. Hi.
How are you, man? How's the weekend? I heard you had a bit. I heard you had a bit of celebrity interaction this morning in Central Dunedin. Yeah,
yes.
Celebrity spotting.
Yep. We had PSA doing a protest in Central Dunedin there, and saw Willie Jackson across the road. Went over and said hi.
Yep.
And just a really, really interesting interaction with a customer, just as the protest kicked off. He's like, this older gentleman of the probably more rural persuasion.
Yep.
And the protest kicked off. He goes, "Oh bloody hell! What's going on now? Who's having a protest?" And I was like, "Oh, I'd say it's probably the nurses and the junior doctors. I would say because they're doing the pay negotiations at the moment." And he goes, "Oh, well, they do need more money."
It just depends who's protesting, whether I support it or not.
And it was just the whole thing of. I don't think anybody would really argue that nurses and doctors need better pay.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
Why don't we give them better pay then?
Crazy.
Landlords.
Maybe if they go talk to the landlords, they'll be happy to
do you know I think it feels like we have to be a bit careful because we constantly criticize the government for just going Labour bad. Are we at risk of going landlords? But I kind of feel like even if we are, ours is truthful, whereas theirs is just a deflection. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely. The other thing I am glad of today is that I actually got out of the house while the weather was good on the weekend, because looking at the weather report, we've got 3 days of rain.
Yeah.
And I know those of you on the East Coast up north, yeah, you've had it worse, absolutely. But I am very thankful that I got out, got to take little dog to the beach, and that is why I'm gonna show you the.
Isn't that crazy? How
that's the wrong one. Anyway, I have watched that on an endless loop since I recorded it on Saturday.
It almost looks like a dog who can run. Not quite though. Doesn't quite get the running thing.
Strutting is more the speed.
I had a very slow weekend. I did some work around the house. We're going to look at getting a bathroom installed downstairs at our place. So a bunch of the weekend turned into clearing out garage. It wasn't particularly fun, but I always come in with my my movie review on a Monday night. It's become world famous. People tune in for it. This weekend, actually, we normally watch a movie on Saturday night or Sunday night, depending on how we fly. And we were going to watch a movie off Netflix. Can't remember the name of it right now. But I've just set up some new sort of, I got given some speakers for my birthday and I set them up and I thought, let's test this while I've looked at the start of Aquaman, because, you know, a big kind of soundscape. And I started watching it whilst we were sort of doing dinner, put it on. My partner goes, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "Aquaman, yeah. I'm not watching it now, hon. We're going to watch the other movie." And after about 20 minutes of kind of playing, she realized she'd never seen it. So we watched Aquaman again. On Saturday night, which was kind of cool actually. I quite like that movie. When what's her name? Johnny Depp and what was his ex-partner's name?
Amber Heard,
when she seemed sane at some point. But tonight after dinner, I watched one of the best worst movies I've seen for a long time. Masterminds. Have you seen Masterminds? It's a comedy. Starring. Check out this for an all-star cast. Zach Galifianakis, Owen Wilson, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones, Jason Sudeikis. It's a pretty all-star cast, yeah?
That's pretty stacked.
It's a comedy about, and this is another interesting thing, it's based on a true story, but it's a comedy based on a true story. You don't often get comedies based on a true story. It's really, the one criticism I read about it was stacked cast, really funny, but perhaps a bit too silly to tie it into a, based on a true story. So it was interesting. It's one of those movies, Chewy, that if you're in the mood for a silly, pointless, not quite, bums and poo jokes, but maybe one step elevated from that, it's great. It's fine. But if you're looking for a classic piece of theatre, I would not recommend it that night. But I found it pretty funny. Silly funny, but funny. Masterminds. In fact, I've got the thing right here. I can show you that one there. See, it's a pretty stacked cast.
I don't think I have watched it, actually.
It's not one of those ones that
gets told that I look a lot like Zach Galifianakis. I like to think that I've watched a lot of his stuff.
It's not ones that I would recommend, like, oh, you got to see this. But if you're feeling like a silly movie, put it this way. Some people will hear this recommendation and they'll go and watch it and they'll go, that was the greatest pile of crap I've ever seen in my life. But, a bit like, the movie Clueless, how that was panned by everyone, but I think it's a cult classic. It's a good, silly movie. This is a bit the same. It's probably panned by everybody, but I found it to be an adequate, silly movie if you're in that kind of mood.
There is a special joy for stupid, dumb movies.
Yeah.
Like, I love being a theatre snob or whatever as much as anything else. But I've got a real soft spot, man, for stoner comedies. Like Pineapple Express and just 30 minutes or less, that sort of stuff. Just, Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Just dumb fucking shit. It knows exactly what it is and doesn't pretend to be anything else. I fucking love them.
Someone's like, Peter's mentioned Dumb and Dumber. The thing about Dumb and Dumber is Dumb and Dumber was a clever, dumb movie. It was a cleverly written script, funny and dumb. This is just a funny and dumb. So, just be aware. I think Dumb and Dumber had some kind of, in the world of comedy, a bit more class to it, as silly as it was with all the, bums and chicks jokes and that kind of stuff. But this doesn't have a great script, but it's just funny, it's silly. Anyway. All right. Let me just say this to start off. Really thankful. Of course, it's is it the first of the month today or the second? Which means our patronage would have come out. We thank you for that. If you are not yet a patron and you like what we do, you want to support what we do, then we'd love to have you on board by heading to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. You can pick a layer. We put posts up there. I put a few thoughts up there occasionally. We give you news updates and what's going on, some early access stuff as well when I record a conversation in the afternoon. And like I said, sometimes there's a few thoughts from me. There's a post I put up about people getting their screenings for cancer after Martimer's announcement with a little bit of a story about my dad. And this is becoming more of a community. Well, let's be honest, behind a paywall, but that's what Patreon is. It's when you watch what we do and you kind of go, oh yeah, this is looking to support these guys. I can find a coffee, a coffee a month, or I can find, a lotto ticket a month, or what people want to do. And I'll tell you something, we're going to be talking about Karen Plunkett a bit later this hour. Now I've got to be careful because I'm sure he put out a tweet talking about how the platform is struggling financially. My words, not his. Like that vibe. I went looking for it today and I couldn't find it. Now, I don't know whether I can't find it or he's as a reply to someone else or whatever. But I have another clip to show you, which is Duncan Garner. When Duncan Garner was hosting on the platform, he got back onto his own show on Rover and he talked about how Sean Plunkett told him that this place is still losing money. So there's these big independent, and they are big independent news groups, and I'll put speech marks around news groups out there who are still falling behind and failing financially. Do you see these two things on your screen right now? These two balls of hair with eyes?
I'm the other thing.
Yeah, these two things, that's what I'm saying. That's it. This is us. And so we run very lean. And one of the reasons we run very lean is, not like, getting lean, but, is that then we don't have debt. And sadly, when my dad passed away, I was able to clear a little bit of business debt. So now we literally don't have debt. We just run off the smell of an oily rag and we get by thanks to our patrons. helping us out. So if you like what we do, if you want to be a part of what we do, if you want to get the benefits for being on board with patronage, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. There you go. Thank you. And thank you for those guys who are already involved. If you're an executive producer, I've actually sent you an email tonight because you guys are entitled as a part of your plan to a monthly catch up. And so I want to try and organize something with you guys this month. Also, actually, now speaking of people coming back to me, I didn't know this until Friday. The printer got caught up with a massive order last week. And so if you ordered merch in the second week, which was technically 9 days ago, that was the Friday, then it's been done in the first couple of days of this week, and I'll have it out before the end of the week. I apologize, it's taken a bit longer. I've got no control over that. The printer we work with is a sole operator, single individual himself, and he was overloaded as well. It happens sometimes. Okay, I think where we'll start, Chewy, is actually looking at Friday's debate between Biden and Trump. Oh. Now, we don't need to go too deeply into this because it was kind of 3 or 4 or 5 days ago or a month ago, depends how you feel. But because we talk about this kind of thing, we do need to touch on it and have a look at it and just see, what actually happened there and what people are talking about. The good thing about doing it today is there's been a couple of other interesting reflections come out since that. Now, what I'll just do is CNN has put together a bit of a snapshot of what people were talking about. So we'll play this for you. And for those of you who are watching live, I apologize that I will read out the words, but the reason I'll read out the words for the text that are coming up is because we have people listening on the audio podcast. So I will read out the words as they come up, unless my dyslexia kicks in and it gets too fast for me, and then I'll run away. Run away. All right, so let's have a look at this. This is a kind of a bit of a wrap of some of the things that were being said. And the piece off CNN is called "Biden Told to Withdraw After Debate as Panic Sets In for the Democrats." There are calls for Joe Biden to pull out of the presidential race after his performance in the first debate against Donald Trump.
My phone really never stopped buzzing throughout. And the universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic.
The pair are the oldest candidates for presidents in US history, with Biden 81 and Trump 78. Biden had a shaky beginning to the debate. The ha-ha's not there, by the way, podcast listeners. When the TV audience would have been at its highest.
Every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Yep.
This was Jon Stewart for those listening.
Need to call a real estate agent in New Zealand.
Hey. Despite improving as the debate continued, it may not be enough to quell concerns about his being Biden's sharpness.
I think there was a sense of shock, actually, how he came out at the beginning of this debate, how his voice sounded. He seemed a little disoriented. He did get stronger as the debate went on, but by that time, I think the panic had set in.
But there was at least one early indication that President Biden will remain on top of the Democratic Party ticket. I'm going to pause here. This footage here, they're not going to delve into it, but this footage was after the debate finished, and it appeared that Jill Biden was helping Joe Biden down off the stage. If that had been broadcast as well, that would have been even worse still. I don't know if they're going to show it all here, but yeah, there was some footage after it, making it look like he was struggling to get down the stairs.
Talking to sources close to President Biden, people have known him for a long time. There is zero chance, they tell me tonight, he steps away from running.
Now, Chewy, I don't know if you remember, but a person sitting in a set remarkably similar to this, looking remarkably similar than this, said 12 months ago, if Biden runs, Trump wins. Now, over the last few months, I've thought about me saying that, and I've kind of gone, nah, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong. But when you have, these are my thoughts, yeah? When you have, as the media is saying, the con man versus the old man debate, and the con man told so many lies, like I should have queued up his first question, because the first question he goes, the best ever economy there's ever been, and all this kind of stuff. And he made about 5 statements. And I was sitting in my chair watching it and went, lie, 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 lie. Every single one of them was bullshit, right? And when you've got someone who lies as much as that, who won't answer questions, who makes more about his golf handicap than any policy, come out looking better than the incumbent president, you know you've got a problem. Chewy.
I have so many thoughts. Look, a lot of people in the chat dragged me into Discord live during that absolute abortion of a debate. The narrative post-debate has been almost 100% about Biden's capabilities.
Yeah, of course.
About his cognitive decline, how old he seems or is, that sort of thing. And almost no one seems to be talking about every single thing that Trump spoke about was a lie.
Yeah.
Or outright
didn't answer.
misinformation, half-truths, exaggeration. He never answered a question. He would go off on some fucking tangent about this mystery world that if he was still the president, the war in Ukraine wouldn't have happened. All of this nonsense. Like, at this stage, if I was an American and able to vote over there, I would vote for a literal bag of potting mix on the Democratic ticket. Like, and unfortunately, that's pretty close to what they've got. What they're voting for is not so much singular Biden. They are voting for his administration.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's so outpaced that this man-on-man debate is so focused on. Like, the way that they structured this debate, like, I can understand why they did it. They went into it saying, we are going to kill the other person's mic until it is your turn. The unintended consequence of that is it just let Trump gish gallop.
Yeah.
Now, you spoke about gish galloping last week. Of just like, okay, cool, Mr. President Trump, here's a question. Mistruth, lie, unrelated anecdote. There was no pushback. There was no interruptions. There was no dragging him back to his point. There was no fact checking because you couldn't fact check that fire hose of bullshit that was every time he spoke.
Well, but also the moderator, that's not the moderator's job. In that setting, the moderator's job is not to critique, because what would have happened then, or to correct, and this may be a criticism of the format, is then they would have been continually correcting Trump, and the world would have seen it as Biden and CNN against Trump. So they were kind of stuck, and they sort of couldn't do that. The other thing that I'm just thinking of now that really harmed Biden with not having the interruptions was he was then left to fill the full 2 minutes. If Trump had been chipping at him and kind of butting in sort of thing, he probably would have looked more capable because it would have been this guy interrupting him. But it was almost like he was put off his game as much by someone interrupting him when there was no one interrupting him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just find the narrative really interesting that the stories are all focused on Biden and
of course.
none on Trump, when it should be, holy shit, we have a country of 500 million people and these are the two that we have picked.
Well, that is a little bit going around. All the polls still say both of them are too old to run. And
there is no one better.
Yeah.
At this point, they should just pick a random sporting event with a full stadium and fire T-shirts into the crowd. And one of the T-shirts says, "You are the president 2025. That is a better option than what is being presented to Americans at the moment. Randomly pick someone.
What they used to do in ancient Greece was it was like jury duty, 500 people a year. would be make up the government.
Fucking
and they
bring that
have to
back.
serve for a year. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Although
Like,
looking at the partisan
fucking
break in the
job.
countries at the moment, I don't know if that will work. The thing I came away thinking, and I still probably say this is right, I've had a bit of a reflection time over the weekend, is after that debate, Trump lost no voters, Biden lost plenty. That's what I was left with at the end of that debate. That debate would be leading nobody who was going to vote for Trump after that debate would now not be voting for Trump, but there'll be people who would have been voting for Biden that'll now not be voting for Biden.
We are looking at the final season of the United States of America.
Final chapter.
We are looking at the fucking fall of Rome in real time. Like, people that support Trump, I mean, he lied and cheated on his partners. He lied and he cheated on his business partners. He failed and lied and cheated on every one of his business ventures.
Yeah.
He lied and cheated when he was last in government. And people are still the Republicans are still rolling out the fucking welcome mat to him.
Let's check about a couple. There's a couple more things I want to show you as well. Now, remember when we said Chippy kind of left his run, even he says it, of being sort of more aggressive too late. This was Biden the next day.
And then he lied about how great he was for veterans. But then I told him how he had called a veteran and had given their lives in the country in World War I and refused to go to the grave
even his
site. He
face,
called them
his
suckers and
eyes,
losers.
he looks more with it.
He tried to deny it. But let me ask you, are you going to believe a 4-star Marine general, his own former chief of staff, John Kelly, who said he said that? Or the disgraced, defeated and lying Donald Trump?
Now, look, he's not perfect. In this speech himself, he says he's a bit slower and he had a bad thing himself. But this Joe Biden versus the one the night before, it's night and day.
At 44.
So that was a mistake. He was about to say 44 of us. It's actually 40 out of 44. But luckily the crowd actually saved him. Like if you had been able to speak into the mic, that would have saved him.
That's okay. How about the fact that 40 out of his 44 top advisors, including the vice president, aren't supporting him this time around? The people know.
So the thing is, the day after, no one's saying that this is the same Joe Biden of 10, 15, 20 years ago, but this is night and day compared to the night before. So what the fuck happened? That's the next question. What actually happened? There are some people saying he was over-prepared and he had too much going on in his head. I mean, I don't think that's an excuse you can do to the president of the United States. And there's a lot of commentators saying that if Joe Biden stays, that Trump should do no more debates. That should be it. Because why would you give your opposition a chance to give a better performance when you could just leave the whole country with that? There's one other thing I want to get to as well. The Philadelphia Inquirer has written a really interesting editorial piece, which is titled, "To Serve His Country, Donald Trump Should Leave the Race." So I'm going to get to that. But is there anything else you want to jump on before we go there? Yeah. Anything else you want before that?
No, let's go for it.
So this article is long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. There's actually really good things that I'm not going to read out, or else we'd be here for 9 minutes reading an article. Let you read you some of the bits that I've highlighted. To serve his country, so this has been written after the debate. To serve his country, Donald Trump should leave the race. Lost in the hand-wringing, this is the hand-wringing about Biden. Lost in the hand-wringing was Donald Trump's usually bombastic litany of lies, hyperbole, bigotry, ignorance, and fear-mongering. His performance demonstrated once again he is a danger to democracy and unfit for office. In fact, the debate is misplaced. The only person who should withdraw from the race is Trump. To build himself up, Trump constantly tears the country down. There is no shining city on a hill. It's just mourning in America, mourning for those who are listening, O-U-R, as in crying. Throughout the debate, Trump repeatedly said we are a failing country. He called the United States third world nation. He said we're living in hell and, quote, very close to World War III. People are dying all over the place, Trump said, later adding, we're literally an uncivilized country now. Later in the article says Trump told more than 30 lies. I reckon it's well more than that, but if you include all those exaggerations and mistruths, but maybe 30 blatant lies during the debate to go with more than 30,000 myth truths he told in his 4 years as president. He dodged the CNN moderator's questions, took no responsibility for his actions, and blamed others, mainly Biden, for everything that is wrong in the world. The debate served as a reminder of what another 4 years of Trump would look like. More lies, grievance, narcissism, and hate. Supporters say they like Trump because he says whatever he thinks, but he mainly spews raw sewage. Trump attacked the military. He denigrates the Justice Department and judges. He belittles the FBI and the CIA. He picks fights with allies and poses up to dictators. Trump is an unserious carnival barker running for the most serious job in the world. During his last term, Trump served himself and not the American people. Trump spent chunks of time watching TV, tweeting, and hanging out at his country clubs. Over his 4-year term, Trump played roughly 261 rounds of golf. That's nearly one a day if it was a year. Think about that. That's a quarter of his time. Quarter of his time as president, he was on the golf course at least once a day. As president, Trump didn't read the daily intelligence briefs. He continued to use his personal cell phone, allowing Chinese spies to listen to his calls. During one Oval Office meeting, Trump shared highly classified intelligence with the Russian foreign minister and ambassador. A couple more for you. Obviously, for those listening, I'm not reading the whole thing, just snippets from it. Trump stacks the judiciary with extreme judges consisting mainly of white males, including a number who the American Bar Association rated as not qualified. A record number of cabinet officials were fired or left the office. The West Wing was in constant chaos and infighting. Many Trump appointees exited under a cloud of corruption, grifting, and ethical standards. Trump's children made millions off the White House. His dilettante son-in-law got $2 billion from the Saudi government for his fledgling investment firm, even though he never managed money before. Trump's mismanagement of the pandemic resulted in tens of thousands of needless deaths. He boasts about stacking the Supreme Court with extreme right-wingers who are stripping away individual rights and upending legal precedents and making the country less safe. If elected, Trump may add to the court's conservative majority. Of course, there were the unprecedented 2 impeachments. Now Trump is a convicted felon who was staring at 3 more criminal indictments. He is running for president to stay out of prison. And the last piece I'll read to you says this. Nope. Oh, this is the end of it. Yes, Biden had a horrible night. He's 81. He's not as sharp as he used to be. But Biden on his worst day remains light years better than Trump on his best. Biden must show up that he is up to the job. This is clear. He has a substantive record of real accomplishments, fighting the pandemic, combating climate change, investing in infrastructure, and supporting working families and the most vulnerable. And it goes on. If you want to check it out, it's a good article. Just Google to serve his country, Donald Trump should leave the race, and maybe Philadelphia Inquirer. So the opinion piece here has been laid out pretty strongly. And you know what, Chewy? None of that matters if all the people get to see is the debate on Friday.
Yeah. I'm just seeing a media machine that has not learned any lessons from the first time that Trump ran.
Yep.
And the vibe that I get talking to my friends in the States is, yeah, panic is a good word. Mourning. A couple of them are genuinely scared. One of them that I know worked in the US Capitol and hasn't been back since January 16th.
Wow.
January 6th, sorry. And she says, either way, if Biden wins, she would expect another January 6th. If Trump gets in, then it's just adding oxygen to those people that they were justified and they were right. Yeah. And either way, that's a very scary sort of thing. Yeah. And I mean, it's easy to get trapped into hyperbole here, as I did before. But yeah, I think when you look, God, someone was passing around the presidential debate between Obama and who was the other guy? Who was he running against?
McCain? Romney?
Mitt Romney.
Mitt
Romney. And it was like it was only 10 years ago. and the candidates were talking to each other respectfully. They disagreed like it was an actual proper debate in the classical political sense, instead of what we had this week, which was a sideshow, an absolute sideshow. And yes, people will vote based on A, what they saw in the debate, and B, what the media have spoken about the debate. And they won't look at what the Biden administration has actually accomplished for Americans, what they've actually done. And we can sit here in New Zealand and we can criticize US foreign policy all day long, and we will forever. But I think, the comments around how Biden has reacted to Israel, again, do you think Trump would be better or worse than Biden in that case?
Yeah.
Do you think Trump would be better or worse for Ukraine or for the entirety of Europe? And I think from a whole world perspective, Trump is very, very bad news.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I think you're talking about it a second ago, and the thought is, and we all know this, so I'm preaching to the choir, is that, if Trump loses, it's rigged. If Trump wins, it was a fair election. So will you abide by a fair election? If it wins,
he was outright asked that, will you abide by the results of the election? And he couldn't say unqualified yes.
Well, no, what he says is a fair election, and what a fair election to him means is one he wins.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he says. Thanks, EJ. EJ just sent through that a screenshot of that Plunkett tweet I was talking about. Hey, do you want to? I'm just setting up some stuff because I've had some things come through. Do you want to go through the super chats and then we'll get on to the next topic?
Yep, sure thing. Hey, Cooking It was almost on time and almost didn't have to pay us $2, but almost doesn't cut it. Thank you for the $2. We've got Vikash Patel here. SCOTUS drops Trump's immunity decision tomorrow. If it's a plurality decision, Roberts and Barrett get the biggest say. Here, have something for the second half of the year. Thank you, Ella, for the $2. Mr. Arvids.
Second half of the year. Sheesh.
Yeah. Not in Auckland, but here's about 17 times the fuel tax. $2. Thank you. JK says polls show Biden is up in the polls. Should have been way up, to be fair. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like
they're depending. They have 100 polls in America. Let's just.
Yeah. And look, as someone on the left, like as I said, if I was over there, I wouldn't be running to the polls and go, "Yeah, I'm super confident about this." James says polls show very little change after the debate, well within the margin of error.
That Biden's performance though will be on a loop for advertising for the 3 months leading up to the election, and questions about the on the nuclear button, this man. So I hear you, but so much is perception, and perception is reality. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, that's all right. Looking, I'm scrolling. I'm doom scrolling right now through through some horrible melted pancake batter man's Twitter. I wonder if he's removed it. That's really interesting. So EJ just sent me the thing I was looking for, which has got the image on it, and now I'm doom scrolling through all of his thing to see how far back am I? I'm back to June the 14th. He might have deleted it. Oh, that's interesting. Wonder why. Yeah, interesting. Sorry, I was just doing some research live on the internet right then. I could be wrong. Well, let's just do that now, shall we? Because we're still at this. Friend of the show, Sunita Torrance, was on with the melted pile of pancake batter, and a really interesting thing happened. Right, the first part of this is just shows how this is not any kind of journalism, or this is not any kind of interview. Plunkett has spent the first 4 minutes talking about Willie McIntosh. You guys know the story. And is confused why Sunita Torrance isn't talking about Willie McIntosh and can't quite figure out that Sunita's not speaking on Willie McIntosh's behalf. So Plunkett literally has no idea what this interview is about. He's not aware that Sunita's conversation is separate completely. Like what? You're talking about there's like different drag queens that can have different problems in the world? Like honestly, he has no idea who this person is. All he knows is drag queen Brian Tamaki, lawyer. That's all he knows, because he spends the first couple of minutes just getting to a point. Oh, so you're nothing to do with that McIntosh. Oh, okay, it's different. Well, what is this then? He kind of literally says this. What are we talking about on his show, in his interview? Here's a question for you before we listen to it. Why is Karen Plunkett carrying so much water for Brian Tamaki? You know, why? Why is this happening? Because what happens here is he gets to a point in the conversation where Sunita's been talking about the lawsuit, you know, the suing Tamaki and Destiny Church, and he goes, "Have you got any evidence of Brian Tamaki defaming you outside XYZ?" And Sunita starts to answer with an example, and he will not let her answer. Like she's answering. So true. If you were to say to me, "Oh, has there been any times where you have seen XYZ?" Rather than going yes, if I went, "Well, on Tuesday I did," and I started answering it like that, perfect. I'm giving you the answer. He can't hear it. He wants a yes or a no, and he will not let her answer the question, although she's offering an answer. And then what she does so brilliantly, and I've already texted her today, giving her one of these, is she flips the switch. And there's that old adage, right? And that old adage is, music soothes the savage beast. She does something. She is kind to him, and it soothes the savage beast. It's really, really interesting. Almost like he's not used to this. Almost like he's a bit taken aback. And you'll see it. His whole demeanor changes when she is kind to him after he's been a bombastic prick to her for the previous 90 seconds. Have a listen.
Has Mr. Tamaki ever threatened to disrupt any of your company's work that has been outside public libraries and not targeted at children?
Start of the answer.
We have had threats that anything that
No, I didn't. That wasn't my question, Sunita. Has Brian Tamaki or Destiny Church ever threatened to disrupt, protest, petition against any of your activities that are done in adult entertainment venues and grown-up venues?
As I was saying before you interrupted, there has been threats that anything to do with my company will be.
My question was quite specific, and I'll ask it again.
Yes.
So you can hear her answering it, eh? She's giving an example of what he has answered. Has Tamaki ever done this? And she's giving an example, and he won't let her answer it. He's either too stupid or too blind to hear, or too arrogant to be bothered to listen. Remember, he doesn't know who this person is, and he doesn't know why he's interviewing her. You go back and listen to it if you want to put yourself through hell, that the first 2 minutes he has to figure out that he's not talking to a representative of Willie McIntosh, right? He doesn't know why she's there. He doesn't have her story, and now he won't let her answer the question that he's asking.
Brian Tamaki and Destiny Church ever threatened to shut you down in adult venues where paying customers and adult customers can choose whether or not
to see your show? So she's now said
show.
yes twice.
Yes.
Can you give me an example, please?
I would love to give you an example, but I'm afraid you might interrupt me.
No, go on.
No, but you have twice, so I won't.
Go on, give me an example.
No, that's fine, Sean.
Yeah, I presume you haven't got an example of that then, Sunita, because I asked you a question.
Classic sea lining.
Yeah, and I tried answering it twice, and you interrupted.
No, I'm not interrupting you now. Go ahead. I'm asking you for an example.
No.
I'm not interrupting you now. Whilst she's talking about you interrupting her, literally talking over her, I'm not interrupting you as she's saying you've been interrupting me.
No.
But you watch the savage beast get soothed.
absolutely. Your style of interviewing is very strange. Like, journalism is about asking a question and getting an answer. And I'm finding that you're not really allowing me to give an answer. So, yeah, I find it quite interesting. But, so I will simply say yes, because I'm not going to say anything further in the fear of being interrupted by you.
Sure. Knock yourself out.
She's won. She's won this pushback.
Got an example? No.
If there's dead air, she's won. She won that interaction without question. She won that.
Absolutely.
And she's got the power in this moment. It's very, very good. And even though he's still going to say, no, there's no example, she has the power in the situation, and it's fascinating. Now you watch what happens next. This is the point where she's kind to him, and you watch his demeanour change from shouting and bombastic. He's still not nice with the words he's using, but you watch his demeanour change.
Got an example? No example.
I do have examples, but I'm not going to give you any.
Then go right ahead. I'll listen respectfully.
No, I'm going to say something different to you about this. Well, not about this, actually, but I saw a post from you in regards to untruths and lies being told about you by Emily Wright. And I actually wanted to put a post on that, a comment on that post, and tell you that even though we're on opposite sides, that I really, truly felt for you, because I understand what it's like to be in that position. And, you know, I don't... I mean, we are on opposite sides, but I truly feel for you, because I really understand what it's like. And I don't want people to understand what it's like to be in this position at all, but I hope in some way that you now get what it's like to be people like us as well.
Brilliant. And what Sunita is doing is what Sean Plunkett claims he does. Because remember, these guys claim to give everyone a shot. These guys claim to want to defend your right to say what you want, even if we disagree with it. She's actually doing what Plunkett claims that they're doing the whole time. Now, now this is the moment. I'll just take about 5 seconds so we get the end of her. This is the moment. And remember, he's just been yelling and screaming. You watch the change. It's coming now.
But I hope in some way that you now get what it's like to be people like us as well. I really do. And
Sunita, the reason I ask about the question about whether or not Brian Tamaki had opposed to, if you like, other areas of endeavour for your company.
Do you see it? It's come
besides
down.
Public libraries.
It's come down.
Is because I would say that in general terms, my perception of Middle New Zealand's attitude to this is that you are welcome to entertain in the way you want, to dress up as the way you want, to have an idea of sexuality or lifestyle that is what you want, and that's your business. And if adults try to do things or I don't know, want to have their kinks or whatever, live their lives, most New Zealanders, I think, are really cool with that. The problem with the issue of gay story times in public libraries is...
They're not gay story times.
Or whatever it is, anti-bullying story times, rainbow story times.
Yeah, the last thing you want is anti-bullying story times in the library, for fuck's sake.
Whatever you want to call it, is that a whole lot of New Zealanders think that it's not appropriate for kids and it's not appropriate in municipal facilities, right?
I would love to invite you to one, just so you can see exactly what we do. I mean, particularly us. I
don't think it's the job of a library to facilitate what you do, and I'm sure it's done with the best of intentions.
That's the end of it. I pulled out of that earlier because I don't feel the need to give the platform. It goes into an advertising thing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chewy, first you've heard it. Isn't that interesting? You take over, sir.
Yeah, like Frothy said, Jesus fuck, he just changed. Absolutely. And
really interesting.
I think there's some classic Sean Plunkett in there, which is just berating a female guest.
Yep.
That is bread and butter for him. And we've covered it pretty much constantly for the last year at least. That badgering, aggressive tone. And I think what we saw there is how to combat it. He wants you on his show for content. He wants to throw you to his wolves and have you torn apart on the edge of his intellect, his judgment. If you don't give it to him, He's got nothing.
Yeah.
He can either crash the interview and hang up on you, or have what every broadcaster fears:
dead air.
big long silences.
Dead air.
It
She
puts
had
everyone
all the
into a panic.
she had all the power in that moment. She had all the power. A female had all the power, and that on some level will grate him, but it also seemed to be he came down. You know, if he went from 0 to 100, he was back down to at least, let's say, 60. You know, really interesting.
And I think here, I'm going to highlight a couple of comments from the chat here from Cliff. I think he's nailed it. Sean can play it straight or be a dick. He can turn it off and on like a switch if you've ever heard him. Absolutely. There is authentic Sean and there is performer Sean. And both of them might be assholes. But it is a question of how far he's willing to turn it up. He's not a psycho. He is just an oaf. He can be very dumb when he wants. And I think that's it. Like, his audience gives him the room to be that dumb. The man used to be a proper journalist that would ask proper questions.
Yep.
And he might be short with people, but now he's short with everyone. And he's got an audience that loves it when he is that way. I think what Sunita did there was absolutely brilliant. And I think it takes a pretty epic reserve to actually pivot and show the man some empathy, because as we've been dunking on him for as long as we've been doing this, you know, he is at times completely contemptible. And it is easy to swat at him and take hits at him and that sort of thing because he's horrible.
Yeah.
But as you know, there's a whole moral in there of like, well, if horrible people only get treated horrible, then maybe the only option is to continue being horrible.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
It's that edge of abuse is abuse. You know, maybe horrible people are horrible. Maybe, you know, if he's had been horrible too, I don't know.
But the thing is, he's on an elevated position of influencing people's opinion. He gives that power to some horrible people. He treats people that are minorities or are in the position of getting punched down on. He brings them on to punch down on them. I don't think I could do what Sunita did there. Hand on heart, I can't. I've even spoken to a friend of mine who knows Sean Plunkett to the point where she's had dinner with him and stuff like that. And she confirms this. There is another Sean Plunkett under there. But that's not the Sean Plunkett that he puts out there. And I think when he's adding oxygen to a discussion where he's trying to be reasonable, just go, I don't think that libraries are a place for this. He's playing into the narrative that that gays are made.
Yeah.
Like all kids are good straight kids unless they're influenced by a gay.
But it's also terrible, quote unquote, journalism, because he says it's not the place for this. He doesn't know what this is. That's why when Sunita came on with us, I said, can you spell out what you do in the library? Well, I come on and I do a song. I read a book, which is silly with no actual, hidden messages. I teach the kids to dance. I bring on another performer. They do a dance. They read a book, and that's about it. Like, he either chooses not to know, or he wouldn't actually go to the obvious step that we did by going, can you explain what you actually do in the library? Now, yeah. So look, we've got to keep moving. But before we do, because it's the time right now, we're going to be here till midnight if we don't do it. I wanted to show you something else. And this is not to dunk on Sean. It's actually not, but it's a continuation of story. And because News Hub is finishing on Friday and there's a new entity starting up on Saturday, and we've always talked about the money that Sean Plunkett got. I remember we've been told by insiders that they were, was it $140,000 a month they were burning through? Something like that. Significant amount that they were burning through, sort of thing. So I can't find this on Sean's feed anymore. EJ, if you know where this is on his feed, you can send it to me or put it in the chat or something. But this is and I'm sure this is Twitter, unless it's on Facebook, unless it could be Facebook. And he said this in the weekend or earlier. Whilst written from Tim Murphy's uber woke legacy media perspective, I'll admit times are tough for everyone, including the platform New Zealand. Please do download the app, subscribe, donate if you want to reach a smart, engaged and growing audience, advertise. So he's saying that times are tough. Now, this is what happened with Duncan Garner. Duncan Garner went and did 2 days of talkback on the platform. This is what he came away saying.
Others text in and said, give me my own afternoon talk show. So do this in the morning, then talk later in the afternoon. Which Sean said, sure, but the place is still losing money, so we need a sponsor. This is what the media is now. You need sponsorships.
So it was when Duncan said that, and I saw that on that clip, I'm like, gosh, I wonder if Plunkett wants that news out there that they're still losing money. That basically means just simply they are not earning enough to cover their outgoings. And again, genuinely not to dunk, but this is us talking about the media landscape. We've said for a long time that I've predicted what will happen is eventually the platform will shut down, because there's a movie called This Is 40, and there's a musician in it talking about keeping his nut small. What he means is his outgoings small. He's keeping his nut small. Easy to live when you keep your nut small. The platform hasn't kept its nut small. Like they've got, I think, 4 hosts and producers, and they've got a couple of salespeople, and they've got office people, and the nut's not small. So what will happen, Plunkett, I think, only owns 25% of the platform. The Wright Family Foundation owns 75%. So he won't be allowed any of those assets, right? Because someone who owns 75, any of it. But he'll go off and he'll probably do something like this and become New Zealand's Alex Jones. Alex Jones, is that the right name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, eh?
Yeah.
And he'll be fine. All the others will be out of work, unless Plunkett takes one person with him eventually. Now, I said that I've been saying that for 18 months and they haven't done it yet, but to hear him in the weekend or whenever that message was saying we need more money, and then Duncan Garner say, I guess a private conversation with Sean Plunkett saying they're still losing money. Don't know if you maybe should have shared that, but he did. I don't know. We'll see what happens with them, but they won't be around forever. Which is why, again, and this is not a pitch for us, but when I say to you guys that, you know, you putting something towards this in the Patreon, or I'm not looking for it right now, so don't do it right now, but like in the super chats or the whatevers, it really does genuinely keep us around. I mean, this is a small nut. This is 2 people with probably the
please
equivalent.
stop talking about our nut.
No, my nuts are tiny. Nut. Singular.
As a show called Big Hairy Nedges, we need to be more proud of how enormous our nuts are.
Anyway, so
sorry, everyone. Carry on.
So that was just an interesting situation to see Plunkett become a bit of to becalm him on some level. So I texted Sunita this afternoon and said, well done, good on you, mate. And she was like, I'm just learning how to be ballsy. I'm like, yeah, good. It was really good, mate. Really, really good. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next topic. Is there anything in the chats you want to get to? Any of the super chats you want to get to?
Let me see what we have. Frosty asked what our thoughts are on RFK.
Yeah, I think it might have been David Packman did a really good bit over the weekend where he went through about 15 people that could be, for example, Trump's running mates. RFK is not going to do anything. He's not going to become president, obviously. And a vote for RFK is probably a vote to help Biden win, because I think he'll drag off more Trump voters than not. One of the suggestions that Packman was thinking about was, would RFK be a running mate to Trump, go in for vice presidency, and that means Trump gets all of his votes and might take a few away from Biden as well. Because let's say 80% of RFK's voters, these are my numbers by the way, but 80% of RFK's voters might be Trump affiliated and 20% might be Biden affiliated. So, you know, if you could siphon off those Biden ones and have them come into your ticket, might be worth it. My thoughts are he's a bit of a lunatic, and his joining into the cycle does add an element of interest for me to see what happens from here. So, I don't know, not too much actually.
As I said to you in the chat, Frosty, brain parasite. Like this is how insane everything is. You're running for president and you go and publicize. You tell everyone that a parasite has eaten part of your brain, and you continue to campaign, and people still hold you up as a viable option is just nuts. Before we
just hang on that point, I heard him being asked about that question by someone who'd done the research, and something like 1 million Americans a year get what he got. So it's not that uncommon, But we just
So
don't hear
you
about
reckon he's cornered the brain parasite vote?
Maybe. No, all I'm saying is lots of people have had it. And lots of people in South America have it and don't actually they never know.
Yeah. Well, that's very serious to my jokey comment. Thank you. Before we came on tonight, I read a bunch of articles about what happens if Biden does stand aside? And the thing that links all of those articles together is that nobody knows. Nobody knows who would be a front runner. Nobody knows who might have enough support. Like, the most positive thing I got out of there was that if Biden died, then it just goes to Kamala and it's easy. Anything before the election is difficult.
But the two people that might be worse than Joe Biden to put up as president are Hillary Clinton, whose name has been bandied about, or Kamala Harris. She is far more unlikable in the polls than either Trump or Biden. So it's a Gavin Newsom or a Buttigieg or someone like that. Although Gavin Newsom's from California, he's a bit sleazy and grimy, but that's what I mean. If they were actually wanted to win and they wanted to serve their country, it'll never happen. It would be Michelle Obama, but it won't happen. But that person would win hands down.
And then we circle back to something that I absolutely hate about American politics is that they want a dynasty.
Yeah.
It's
No, Bernie's too old.
Or
Bernie's too old.
Or it's got to be something linked to another fucking the Clintons or the Kennedys or the Obamas. Now we're talking about his kids or Michelle taking a run. Taylor Swift. Fucking why not at this point? Why
Jon
not?
Stewart. People are asking Jon Stewart to do that.
Jon Stewart.
He'd
John
actually be
Oliver,
good though.
Double ticket. Yeah. It's just mad. Bag of potting mix 2025.
Yep, it's if you've never seen the turd sandwich giant douche South Park episode, incredibly appropriate. Like, just if you haven't seen it, it'll make sense when you watch it. Go and look up giant douche turd sandwich South Park. Everything's explained.
You know how there's those random little American towns that have voted for like a cat or a golden retriever to be their mayor for like 25 years? Is it time to do that like on a bigger scale? Just put up a golden retriever. I'd vote for it.
Very good. Really, even if it was I thought there's only one brand of dog you'd vote for. What is it? A Valholenstein?
I can't find that, but I have to scramble to find that video again. But that'll be my campaign ad.
All right.
But yeah, like at this point, at the Democrats, you have a choice of Trump or this gorgeous golden retriever. I reckon they'd take it.
This morning on the AM show, so that's me moving on. This morning on the AM show, Chloe Swarbrick and David Seymour had some chats about housing. Let's have a look at that conversation.
We're looking at about 6.5% year on year, so that's still up above CPI at 4%.
Talking rent.
But there is a slight cooling there, and supply is increasing. We're seeing demand coming down, so it's moving in the right direction, don't you think, Chloe?
Depending on how you look at those variables that are driving precisely that. So you were talking before on the show with Gavin from Trade Me about particularly migration numbers. We also know that there's a ton of New Zealanders, particularly young New Zealanders, who are leaving this country, which is devastating. A lot of them are doing so on the premise not only, of course, of pent-up demand around COVID-19, but of the fact that they believe that they have better opportunities offshore and that there might potentially be lower cost of living. We can achieve better infrastructure investment. We can have a thriving nightlife. We can have communities that people want to invest in here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, if we get the policy settings right. But actually, I would call on David here because he made some compelling points when it comes to the evidence and database that we need to make.
See what this is? This is what Sunita did. See how she's saying nice things about David? It's the same sort of. I'm just saying.
Informed decisions around school attendance, for example. We don't currently have next to any real good, meaningful data around the distribution of ownership of rental properties in this country. And in fact, both Labor and National have kind of had a go at each other for not having these figures, yet not being interested in actually resolving the problem in the first place. So if we were to do that, then we would have far greater insights into also the likes of wealth distribution and inequality in this country. And ultimately, we'd be able to make better public policy decisions.
Do you think that is helpful? Do you think David, do you think it would be helpful helpful to know.
No,
who owns rental
I mean, this is what we hear, week after week from Chloe, that your problems are caused by someone else's success, and if only we could go after those people or blame someone else for doing well, then we could solve the problem. The truth is that there are two things that need to happen. Number one, make it easier to build a house. The easier you make it to build a house, the more there will be, the more choices tenants will have. Number two, make it easier to be a landlord. The easier it is to own a house and rent it out to another person, the more choice there will be, the more pressure there will be on prices. The basic facts are that in the last 2 years of the previous government, rents went up $200. And they're still going up. We've still got...
Do you notice those still, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt it, we'll ever keep going. Do you know that no one ever still goes, why? Rent's going up by $200 a week. Sounds bad, is bad. Why? Why do they go up by $200 a week? That's what I'd want to know. Because then you can figure out, like via some evidence, how to address that issue of why they went up. No one ever asks it. No one ever goes, why?
Really bad momentum on inflation right across the economy. I accept all that. But what is our government doing about it? Well, number one,
making it easier
management.
to kick people out of their houses with no-cause evictions.
And you know what one of the effects of that is? If it's easier to kick out a bad tenant...
This is beautiful. This is literal, people who are anti-science, this is literal anti-evidence. David Seymour shows his whole ass here by saying how much he doesn't believe in evidence.
And you know what one of the effects of that is? If it's easier to kick out a bad tenant, then a landlord...
increase rents.
Yes,
that's what the evidence bears out.
Then a landlord is more likely to take a chance on someone that maybe doesn't have good references, that maybe has a bad history.
There is no evidence for that whatsoever.
You always talk about evidence, Chloe, but just a second.
It kind of matters to make good public policy.
Well, yeah, but you often don't have any.
You constantly talk about evidence. Chloe, when you talk about evidence, it ruins the points I'm trying to make.
There is no evidence for that whatsoever.
You always talk about evidence, Chloe, but just a second.
It kind of matters to make good public policy.
Well, yeah, but you often...
Yes, evidence matters to make good public policy, indeed. There's another clip to play, Chu, but jump on that one first, sir.
Vibes.
Yeah.
I would also vote for Chloe's eyebrows for literally any position of authority anywhere in the world.
I would love to play poker with Chloe Swarbrick because her eyebrows would give her away every single time. Just a thought. Clip two. Yep. They're going on to talk about the 3 key solutions.
3 key solutions.
That's what I said.
Noting that no one solution is going to fix absolutely everything, but there are 3 key things that the Greens have been campaigning for a really long time to fix the housing market. One is a register for property managers and landlords. We do not have a meaningful backstop to understand who owns these properties, and therefore ultimately how we ensure that we raise the bar of responsibility in order to actually meet the likes of the Residential Tenancies Act healthy home standards. The second is turning those healthy home standards into a rental warrant of fitness, which we've discussed time and again on this show. And the third is rent controls. Bear with me on this because we currently have within the Residential Tenancies Act forms of rent controls around, for example, the inability to raise rents more than once every 12 months.
When the host says, "What do you think of that, David?" What do you think he's going to say? Oh yeah, a great idea. I'm hopeful that's what he says.
Never work.
No, I think he's going to support it. That's what I think. I think he'll be for it.
Oh, okay. However, what the evidence shows is that if we move to a no-cause eviction model, then landlords can kick out their tenants in order to increase rents.
I just want to go back to that. I just want to go. Hang on, sorry. I just want to go back to the owners and. Aren't you in saying that that's
I just want to clarify something because I think it's really important. I'm sure most people have got it, but for the one person watching that doesn't, what Chloe's saying is if there's no fault evictions, and you want to put the rent up but you can't legally, you just boot the people out, you put the rent up, you bring people in. So that's why the evidence, as Chloe cites, shows that no fault eviction, or no cause eviction, I think it is, enables rents to go up more quickly. Because the landlord will go, oh shit, we've got to replace that roof. Oh shit, I need $50 more a week. Okay, you guys are gone. See ya. And then add 50 on and re-advertise the place.
And look, let's be clear, that happens now, but landlords have to come up with a reason.
Sure.
Like, you can evict anyone on a shorter term if they're going to do major renovations or if they're going to live in it or that sort of thing. And then, oops, oh, okay, no, I don't need to do the renovations. It was all a mistake. I was mistaken. New tenants, rent's gone up $100.
Yeah.
If they don't even have to do that fig leaf anymore, then, yeah. How often? Yeah, I don't like your face. You asked me to fix too many things. Fuck off. We'll get someone else in.
We'll get someone else.
That no, and if you're a tenant and you know you can get booted for anything, are you going to stick up for your rights?
Yeah. All right.
No.
This has got less than about 60 seconds to go.
Just want to go back to that. I just want to go. Hang on, sorry. I just want to go back to the owners and. Aren't you in saying that that's, you know, owning a property is kind of inherently makes you a bad person in some way? You know, or we want to make sure that, you know, there's a specific type of person that's not owning a whole lot of property?
No, what we want to do is have an informed public debate. Right now, we know that there's approximately 120,000 landlords. We know that there's approximately 1.5 million renters in this country. But we don't have meaningful understanding of who owns what, and therefore, if there are bad actors, how we can raise the bar. No, it's ultimately about creating a public policy environment.
It's a witch hunt. And I'm sorry, but this is the kind of populism that I'm getting tired of. If only we could find some
evidence about who owns what in this country.
Oh, David's getting
Populist
tired of
says
it.
what?
Oh, David.
Surely that is an important thing.
No, because what's important is that we make it easier to build a house, make it easier to be a landlord. And if you want to talk about evidence, Chloe, you guys had 6 years. You beat up on landlords, you put more restrictions on, you put more taxes on. Rents went up $200 in 2 years. That's the evidence, Chloe. Now we're making it easier to build a house, make it easier to be a landlord so people have choice and prices can come down.
There you go. That's the end of the two clips. Shall we? I mean, again, you know, no pushback for why did it go up by $200 a week. Lots of solutions from Chloe. That seems to be media, New Zealand media 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a dreadful interview. Look, once again, whether you agree with Chloe or not, she stated what she thought was something that could change it. She stated the reasons for it really clearly. You know, look, I'm not even on board with everything. I'd like to see more about rent controls to really understand how that would work. But when it comes to licensing property managers and that sort of thing, absolutely. Remember, most property managers are frustrated real estate agents. There are just absolute horror stories from rental agencies and rental property managers, and they're just too common and they're just too similar to look at and not go, this is a problem. So yes, I think that should be solved. I also agree with the rental warrant of fitness, because as much as the healthy home standard moved the needle a little bit, I don't think it moved it enough to provide people with warm homes that keep them healthy.
Yep.
You know, we've got a lot of old homes and most of them are rentals. You know, the benefits to the entire country are very, very clear. The benefits to the owner's property portfolio may be less clear, which is where Seymour's coming. And yeah, I'd like to know more about rent controls.
Yeah,
before I really weigh in on that. I also love David Seymour talking about populism. Because there were two politicians on that couch, and one of them was definitely a populist. And I don't think it's who David Seymour thought it was.
What is that? I'm rubber and you are glue. What you say bounces off me and sticks to
That's
you.
projection. It's always projection. Every accusation is an admission. All of those sort of things. But yeah, do we really think that? You know, I'll give it to him. Building more houses is part of the problem. Well, it was part of the solution to the problem. But what David's saying is make it easier. That means less regulation. Now, we've tried this before, and we ended up with decades of fixing leaky houses. Or we'll end up with some shoddy short-term builds just to get some money moving through. What we need to do is move away from property ownership and rentals being the only way to use your investment dollars in this country. If people aren't hoarding houses, then more people can own houses, and then we wouldn't need as many rentals. But yes, he won't get out of his way to see that.
I was just looking for the graph that that shows the houses built under Labor, 120,000.
Oh,
and
yes.
Then under National so far, 0. It's just about houses being built.
And look, talking about rents going up $200, you know, what David's trying to draw there is a parallel straight to the Healthy Home Standard, straight to the Bright Line test, all of those sort of things affecting rentals. And it wasn't that at all.
Planet Walk, thank you for your super chat. B18 earning enough to cover costs. If not, here's some extra. It depends what you mean by costs. Certainly not earning enough to pay us for our time. We do it because we love it. But thank you for your super chat. Worming says, oh, look, it's the worst human being around, followed by Citizen Gold. Thank you, Worming, for the super chat. Only the worst landlords reckon Seymour ain't the worst example of humanity. And Mr. Arvids, thank you for your super chat. ACT is also a party of PDF file protectors too. Some other ones. Caleb says number of people per dwelling is higher today than in 1991. Supply side arguments are consistently wrong. It's about demand side that needs taxes to fix. The other thing, just speaking of understanding the numbers, you see the head of Kāinga Orders step down today, and there's people yelling and screaming about his $375,000 payout. Well, it wasn't him that made that contract. He signed a contract and they booted him out. And remember, I heard Luxon doing it again today, talking about the debt that Kāinga Order has built up. You know, the $10 extra billion debt. Yet no journalist, no person said how many assets, what's the value of their assets they got for that $10 billion. Because actually, as we know, they've got now an extra $25 billion worth of assets for that $10 billion worth of debt. But yes, that's always left out of the equation. Always
the
left out of the
people
equation.
not allowed their context, Pat.
Yeah, well,
they can have some context as a treat.
The Melulator, Quinnipiac in Hamilton is well known for doing exactly that every 6 months. We had people moving every 6 months in Hamilton. It was appalling. I guess that's referencing kicking people out and upping the rent. So,
speaking of Quinnipiac, as a former resident and renter in Wellington, wherever you are in this country, if a property is being leased by Quinnipiac, run like the hills. They are the scummiest operators.
Run like the hills? Run like the hills. Run
For the hills. Yes.
There you go.
Sorry, as I was saying it, my headphones died. So I have no idea what I'm saying now.
Gotcha. Hey, we've got one more story, and look, we've caught up with a bit of time, so let's do it, because I'm interested in. There seems to be, I think, Chewy, people don't understand that there's not enough podcasts out there at the moment. And we need more of them, apparently. We need more podcasts. That's what we need. And in the last week, 2 podcasts have started that I'm calling bromance podcasts. They're featuring the people that you would have seen on your TV screens 20 years ago being all blokey and jokey and, you know, ex-sportsmen and athletes and stuff. One of them is Sportcafe. I loved Sportcafe in the day. Were you a Sportcafe watcher, Chewy?
Weirdly enough, occasionally.
Right.
I'm not into sports or sports people or anything like that, but they had that really interesting niche of comedy as well. And my flatmates at the time really liked it. So occasionally I would see it.
Well, it's a bit like how Top Gear wasn't a car about cars.
Yes.
Sorry, a show about cars. It was a show about 3 guys with a great relationship. Sportscafe wasn't a show about sports. It was a show about the interaction between the hosts being live on the television where anything goes.
Yeah.
And sports
Matthew
was almost
Ridge
a byproduct.
And who was the other guy?
Marc Ellis.
Marc Ellis. And of course, both of those guys have rich history with Dunedin, and it was, you know, they were worshipped down here. And they did lots of their skits and stuff down here and that sort of thing. So, yeah, the story that you're going to play.
Well, obviously, those 2 guys are synonymous for a certain age demographic for doing television 20 years ago. They weren't on Sportscafe together. Marc Ellis was on Sportscafe, but they were on a show called A Game of 2 Halves with Tony Veach, Mike King, and Martin Devlin, I think, from memory. And they did a whole bunch of fresh up, run around the country doing things, those kinds of shows together. Well, Matthew Ridge has come out with his new podcast saying, I don't care if you cancel me, dropping gay slurs left, right, and centre. I wrote up in the notes for the show too. This is what I wrote. A new raft of bromance podcasts are hitting the markets by the likes of Matthew Ridge, who wants to go after anyone woke, and the guy from Sportcafe, yada, yada, yada. It's all humour from the early part of the 21st century, and we wonder if there is still a market for it. It's overt in its market, with Matthew Ridge stating, quote, I don't care if you cancel me, end quote, which may have had some credence 20 years ago when New Zealand knew who Matthew Ridge was, but today one needs to have profile or influence to be able to be cancelled. So this is Matthew Ridge's new podcast. He says he doesn't care about being cancelled after using homophobic slurs. The ex-rugby player has joined up with former socialite David Ring for a new podcast called The Brink. I'll just play. This has been put together by Stuff, so it's a little snippet of 47 seconds, and he does drop the gay slur F word in here, but they've taken it out. But you'll get a vibe of the quality of this broadcast and podcast. See if you think that 2024 New Zealand is up for this kind of bromance podcast.
Bears on the bikes, where you got the bikes. Hang on.
The guys that we'd call. I don't care if you cancel me either.
I think you can't cancel it because I'm here and I'm not getting offended. You know, it's just a word. But at the same time, it's like that says more about you than me.
What do you mean? No, it just says that I felt uncomfortable because you were dressed like a queer, like a raving freak. Like, just don't, like, dress like a beer or an electrician or something. Just don't dress like a pinky.
A Twinkie.
A Twinkie.
So you get the vibe. You get the vibe of what they're all about. I don't know who the socialite is, but he's gay and married to a very wealthy man apparently. So that's why it's okay for him to use those words. So there's one, Chewy. Now I won't give you my thoughts around Sportscafe. But Rick Salizzo has been quite good at doing this kind of thing, and the podcast is called Sportscafe-ish, because obviously it's not Sportscafe because that would require too much of an investment. I've got a few minutes here actually, and this person in the corner. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is either, but he is a little person. They spend the first part of the show asking what he's supposed to be referred to as, and he ends up telling them, just call me by my name. And he is the person who is in charge of keeping them politically correct. So these guys have gone down a different path. They've almost gone down the self-deprecating path of, are we allowed to do this kind of thing today that we did 20 years ago? So they're kind of acknowledging it. Have a listen to a little bit of their podcast that I took off earlier this afternoon.
We have a sponsor, which is not...
Shit. Oh, boy. Sorry. Oh. Yeah, who's the sponsor? TAB.
TAB is our sponsor. Now, TAB was our first sponsor, so really we thank the TAB for starting us off, because without the TAB there would have been a Sportscafe. And so what we're going to do with the TAB is I'm going to make some bets on behalf of the show, the podcast.
Yep. Lovely.
And I'm going to generate huge amounts of money, which I'm going to give to charity.
That makes sense, and then we can mock people.
Yeah, and then we'll build up some credits.
Including ourselves.
Yeah, we'll build up some credits from all the good works that we do. So
do
we
you
can
choose
then
the
mock.
charities, or do we all choose them?
Well, you can all suggest them, and then I'll choose them.
Okay.
I'll ignore your suggestions.
Is the only place we can mock people on TikTok?
Yeah, no. You can do it everywhere. Instagram's like Facebook. You got to be a bit picky and choosy with your content, but TikTok, because there's so much out there.
How about TV? Is that still a thing?
Well, they're not so much. Okay. Yeah, you have a television, but no one watches channels anymore.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
So TV is not because we were on TV one time, weren't we?
Yeah.
It's not a thing now?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, no, I mean,
they're all so woke in PC TV these days that if you did something that offended 3 or 4 people and they got vocal about it, then that show would be cancelled.
What's going to happen
when we're on TV? TV's for about 4 feet thick.
Yeah.
Tube. They weren't even flat screens.
No.
And you could complain to the BSA and nothing would really happen to you. These days, people click 2 buttons and your
Actually, funny you should say that, because when we did the TV show...
Are people going to be able to comment on this show?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
YouTube, TikTok, everything.
So when we were doing Sportscafe for TV New Zealand, we had a person full-time on complaints just for us.
Would you mind if I just sort of poured a bit of cooking oil all over you and maybe had a wrestle?
What?
Sorry. Thinking out loud.
Yeah. Too much Steinies.
So we were actually leading to the place where I'm trying to get to, which we had so many complaints.
Canola oil.
And nothing got more complaints.
I think baby oil.
Nothing got more complaints than this. Hey.
Well, hey, this is a bloody deep negotiation.
I know, it's a private moment, but you can't have a private moment when we're doing a public podcast.
There's nobody else in here.
Well, there's 3 other
baby
people.
oil. And
what was the first thing, though?
Speedos. Well, I was saying cooking oil. Like glaze yourself like a Christmas ham, and
Hydraulic oil.
Hey?
I think that's stereotyping, and
it's not silly. But beer oil with some sand in it.
Did you something a grease gun?
There you go. So there's actually quite a lot of Sports Cafe vibe to it. Chewy, 2024. What do you think? Lots of people saying, "Where's the funny?"
Christ, that was painful. That was painful. Like, I saw a couple of comments in the chat going, "Where's the funny bit?"
Yeah, I put that one up.
just rambling. Like, oh, I don't know. Does it feel like these guys are taking another grab at some relevance, but doing it in exactly the same way that they tried 20 years ago?
I think you'll find. I mean, I've got no idea, but I think you'll find that Marc Ellis. Remember, his company Charlie's was sold. I think he got $18 million out of it. He doesn't need relevance. He's fine, and I think you'll notice the way he speaks and his humor, whatever. His way hasn't changed at all. So he's still doing what he's doing. The question is it going to work in this year? Like I see someone in the chat, I loved it for someone who watched the old shows. It's funny. Like I can kind of get that vibe as well, because it does feel a bit like Sports Cafe, and I used to watch Sports Cafe. But I'm really interested now in this world. Like, for example, let's just tell you what's going to happen, right? Matthew Ridge thing will disappear and be gone very, very shortly. The thing about doing podcasts is you've got to be really consistent, and you've got to be able to churn them out, like one a week, whatever you're doing. It's got to be regular, and that's not going to survive. It won't last. It'll be gone. Trust me. There's my first prediction. This one, they've got to sponsor Sports Cafe. And they will, I don't know. If again, I mean, like the thing that's frustrating about it, Chewy, as much as we try, is, they put one of that video there that I took that chunk of out of, and it's got like 30,000 views in 2 days, which for us would be our biggest video ever. Yeah, there you go. It's already got 23,000 subscribers. So maybe there is a vibe for it.
I mean, look, I'm going to have to be real careful, because there's an adage of people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I'm a white male comedian on a podcast. It's not like I'm an endangered species. It's almost a running joke at this point, that anybody can spin up a podcast, and it can be about some incredibly niche stuff like New Zealand politics. But yeah, it just seems odd. Everything has an audience,
except us, apparently, according to some of the text.
I mean, apart from the fact that Lee Hart was in that other clip, and like there are a whole bunch of problems with Lee Hart. Like for someone that is quite willing to blame getting hacked for some of the outrageous shit that he said on Twitter and that sort of thing. Mate, just stop getting hacked. Like on the fourth or fifth time, it's less believable. The clip with Matthew Ridge, however, like when I read the transcript of that, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not nudge, nudge, wink, wink. He's just out there using the old slurs. Speedo Cop should be in fucking Te Papa. I don't care who knows it. Like I was a big fan of Lee Hart and Moon TV. Yeah. I think I'm one of 12 people that have actually seen Moon TV. It was so stupid.
It was pretty big at the time.
I loved it. But in substitution of Moon TV, I would like to put out there Back of the Y.
Yeah.
Back of the Y, peak New Zealand television from the early 2000s. Absolutely amazing.
Ice TV from the 90s.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, will they have the staying power to go on? Will they have the audience to go on? Who knows? Maybe they've got the audience. Joe Rogan's still able to do, well, is he still the most popular podcast on the planet?
Yep.
That's disheartening.
But remember, he's also basically owned or licensed exclusively by Spotify. So Spotify push him out to all of their people. So of course the numbers are going to be massive.
Max Key's got a podcast, I assume.
Probably everyone does.
Yeah, everyone's got a podcast. So yeah, find your tribe, I suppose. But yeah, seeing Matthew Ridge's comments are just like, it's so out of time for me. It's jarring.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Interesting. A few chats that have gone in there before we head off for the night. Great show. Don't have anything to add. Just thought one to support thing one, thing two in their endeavours. Contribution to the Big Hairy Tiny Nuts Fund, says Caleb. Thank you for those. That wasn't a pitch, by the way, but thank you anyway. Was a fan of Game of Two Halves. They washed now, Mr. Arthur. Yes, occasionally I get Game of Two Halves highlights popping up on my YouTube feed, and when I look at Tony Veach, I just can't. So that dude threw his wife down the stairs and broke her back, and then hit it, and then then came out from it whilst I was working in the studio next to him. It was a very strange time. It was a very, very strange time.
There should
when
be
he was
there's
right
no
there.
There should be no coming back from that.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
they brought him back.
fucking insane that he had a career after that.
Yep, he's in Thailand or something now, isn't he? He runs an Airbnb or something. That's what he's done, because he still would have made squillions of dollars to be able to go and do that. Dear American Liberal, says Rajan, thank you for your super chat. If you don't want Biden replaced as the Dem nominee, then you're admitting you don't think Trump is a threat to US democracy. What a beautiful and perfectly succinct way to maybe wrap up the show. Well said. Well said, Rajan. Well said. All right. Now, tomorrow night, we have a guest coming on the show. Jeffrey Miller will be joining us. Jeffrey Miller was quoted in a article today that I read about what the US and French election results mean for the Pacific. Because what's happening in France at the moment, going far right. Jeffrey Miller is a geopolitical analyst, and he'll be joining us live tomorrow night to talk about what the election results of those two superpowers mean for the South Pacific and anything more. So Jeff will be joining us. Also, I guess, more of this stuff. I'll go and try and find some more podcasts to play. It's the podcast that likes to play other podcasts and then talk about podcasts. That's sort of what we do. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And I think everybody tonight in their nighttime prayers should say something nice about Karen Plunkett. Because if Sunita can do it and get him to change in an instant, imagine all the good vibes we could send his way. And maybe... Sorry, I just threw up in the back of my mouth just a little bit there. I'm not sure where that came from. I apologise. And that's about it. Anything else, Chewy?
Yep. I am going to acknowledge who said it. Who said it? Who said it? Someone had it. Someone said it. Where'd it go? Fuck, I've lost it. It's gone too far. You nudged me in the chat, whoever mentions that we should talk about the fact that there are submissions for that no clause eviction stuff. Residential tenancies amendment
Due
bill.
Wednesday.
Closing date for submissions is 2 days from now. So if you think that landlords shouldn't be able to chuck tenants out on the street with no warning, no reason, just to put the rent up, you have 2 days to make a submission saying what you think about that. David Seymour doesn't want you to do it.
Oh,
yeah.
Enough reason to do it then, isn't it?
Yeah. If not for the tenants, to fuck off David Seymour. Make a submission.
Kiwi Skirts just put it in the chat for YouTube as well.
Fantastic.
Very good. Thank you, team. You're all beautiful.
And sure, pick up the news. Big Harry style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for just facts straight up. Plan and chew, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team, you're beautiful. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another live edition of Big Hero News. Remember, if you would like to support what we do, patreon.com/Big Hero News. Join into the chat, share our stuff around, be our advocates. Love to continue to do it for you. That's it from me, Chewy.
That's it from me as well.
You as well. That's it from
I'm
us.
gonna go.
All right, team. Thanks for everything. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.